Welcome, everyone. This is Chet Binning recording live on August 15th, 2025. This presentation will be an introduction to the training methodology known as dense training, which is an incredible way to get more results in less time. Today, the time domain that I will be focusing on is 25 to 30 minutes. So this video will be for my existing clients as well as future clients if you're watching this in the future. Now, the biggest benefit of dense training is there's no wasted time. And I used to waste a lot of time in the gym. It's as simple as that. When I think back to my early 20s, late 20s, so I'm 34 now, I would often spend 90 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours in the gym. Now, granted, at the time I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, I was a student, so I definitely had some extra time, and I was and still am incredibly passionate about exercise. So it's not like it was work for me. I just did what I loved and enjoyed. I was really into CrossFit at the time, and I did a lot of it. But that being said, when I look at what that 90 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours consisted of, there was so much wasted time. I mean, I could have been a lot more efficient and probably got more results. Now, I do want to emphasize that, and I put wasted in quotations here because I still learned a lot. I learned a ton during this time. So it wasn't all wasted time. We learned from our experiences. I had a lot in the gym trying different stuff. And so that has been very valuable to me in the long run. But still, looking back on that time, if I would have pieced things together differently, I would have gotten a lot more results in that amount of time that I spent in the gym. Now, fast forward, things have changed a lot for me. Maybe they've changed a lot for you as well in the last couple years. I'm now married. We just had our second kid. We have a dog as well. He's pretty time consuming. Full-time job. And I mean, that's the reality, right? We're all busy. Unless you're living somewhere else in the world where things move a little bit slower. I'm in Canada. We're all busy. And so we want and we need results in less time. I don't have time to spend an hour in the gym anymore. Right now, our second is about a month old. I'm doing about 25 to 30 minutes a day. And it's funny, I never thought that would be enough. When I was younger, I was always someone who thought, you don't have an hour to take time out of your day and go to the gym? Sure you do. You're crazy. You have to make that time. And now I realize, no, when you're a busy parent with kids, maybe they're in sports, whatever it may be, you know how it is. The hours and the minutes and the seconds of the day seemingly vanish. And so it can be tricky to carve out that time. So that's what this presentation is about. It's about introducing you or expanding on your existing knowledge of this dense method, which is a way to get incredible results, in my opinion, if done properly, in a very realistic amount of time, 25 to 30 minutes per day. I think it's fair to say that everyone can make that happen. A quick note, there seems to maybe this is just my personal experience, but there does seem to be some unique mental benefits to doing this, as in carving out that time every single day. I haven't fully figured this out yet. I'm just mentioning this because I'll be curious to see if other people experience this. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that everything around us is telling us and encouraging us to do really the exact opposite. You have that free time come up and it's so much easier to spend it on your phone, waste a bit of time on a screen, sit on the couch for a little bit to take a break. And so overcoming that, I think there's something to this. Now, the other part may be every day has multiple 25 to 30 minute blocks, right? Think about how quickly that time vanishes if we're scrolling, for example. Are we going to remember that experience in a year, 5, 10 years down the road? No, absolutely not. It's gone. It's mindless. Are you going to remember those times that you did the hard thing and took that 25, 30 minutes and went to the gym? And then eventually over time, you've realized that you've put in the work in these short sessions, but you've realized that, wow, I'm actually a lot better now for taking that time. You will definitely remember that and you will get better from that. So that's the idea here. So let's get to the actual details of this dense training method. And I think this is the simplest way to look at it because the numbers really don't lie. Let's say you schedule 60-minute sessions. And I want to emphasize that there's absolutely nothing wrong with 60-minute sessions. If you have the time, you are consistent with those, then that's amazing. There's nothing magical about these shorter sessions that make them better. It's just that they're more practical for a lot of people. But let's look at the numbers. Let's say you schedule 4 60-minute workouts in a week. Maybe you miss one of those, you miss 2 of those or more because you don't have time. Now you're down to 120 minutes of training per week. But it's not just the time. You also probably feel discouraged for missing workouts, you lose momentum, and you have sedentary days in between those workout days. In comparison, if we use this dense method, let's say we use 30-minute sessions, just 5 in a week is 150 minutes. If you do 6 or 7, you're looking at 180 minutes or 210 minutes. You could do the same thing here with 25 minutes, and you'll figure out that just 6 or 7 in a week, 6 or 7 25-minute blocks. Think about that. You can do a lot in that amount of time. But I think even more powerful and something that definitely adds to the mental boost I was talking about is the momentum that you feel in the daily movement, the daily boost of confidence, the daily win. There's something to that for sure. And mentally and physically, it's really bizarre, but I've noticed that it feels easier. It's easier to jump into the session. I find that there's less mental hurdles. In the past with the longer ones, even though I loved and still love training and exercise, there was still plenty of times where I was dreading the workout, especially the warm-up. I don't want to go do a warm-up. That's boring. I just want to get right to it. But I felt like I had to do it. Or there'd be times where I have a great workout and then the next day I just feel beat up. I feel exhausted, and that was a deterrent. I haven't felt any of that with these shorter workouts. We'll see if that continues, but I think there's something interesting here. Here's a more detailed example. This might not be interesting for everyone if you're not as in tune with percentages and things like that. Others, this will be very interesting. Let's look at a 5x5 versus a 10D3, which is how dense programming is written, which I'll show you in a minute. 5x5, let's say you're doing squats with 4 minutes rest in between, which is common. Takes 16 minutes total, and you'd be doing 25 reps at, let's say you're doing 80% of your max. Well, if we do a 10D3 at that same percentage, you can get 30 reps at the same intensity in a shorter amount of time. And that is enormous. If you do that day in, day out, year after year, you're going to be experiencing some pretty incredible benefits in a short amount of time. Here's another example. Like I said, many of you will have already seen this, so I hope it helps with some understanding. I think with exercise, the more you can understand the easier it is to maintain compliance. Personally, the first time I learned about the physiology and the biochemistry of what exercise is doing to the brain, it was like almost like a switch went off. Like, I already love doing this, but now I understand what it's doing to my brain even more. Now I'm really excited. So I hope you can get a similar effect here. So the D, if you just look over here on the right hand side, 5DX, for example, we're talking about a push-up. But remember, you could apply this to anything. Bench press, shoulder press, it doesn't matter. Apply it to anything. The D simply refers to density, so it's kind of a placeholder. The first number, though, the 5 or the 10, or you might see, rarely, but you might see a 20. Usually you'll see a 5 or 10. That means it is 5 minutes total or 10 minutes total. And at the start of every minute, you are doing the number that will be here. Now, these are all X's, but oftentimes you will see a number. So let's say it's a 5. That means you will be doing 5 reps of that movement at the start of every minute for the duration. What does the X mean? That means you have to find that rep number yourself. So that first set or the first 2 sets perhaps are a little bit of a trial and error. You want to find a rep number that feels right, in quotations, which I'll explain in a moment, and then stick to that for the duration. Now with dense training, because it is so quick, you want to always start with a weight that is moderate, maybe even on the easy side, because you want to have room to improve each session. The other reason why is we are benefiting from frequency over intensity. For example, if you were doing a traditional style of training, maybe it is that 5x5, or maybe it's West Side Barbell speed work, for example, where they're often doing 10 sets of 1 rep, for instance. That demands intensity. Like, that has to be heavy. It has to be incredibly explosive and max intensity every time. The reality is, if we're using dense training, it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to have max intensity every single time because it's in such a short time domain. It's not impossible, and we'll use it sometimes, but for most folks, we are relying on frequency, which means more reps in a shorter amount of time, which means keep the weight low, at least to start, and then you can build on that every single week. Now, just a quick note. These are different from EMOMs, often used in CrossFit, because there's more flexibility within the blocks, which 99% of CrossFit programming gyms or coaches do not use. Now, I know for sure there's definitely some more savvy ones out there. A friend of mine I can think of in particular who is using this, but that's not the norm, that's the exception. So typically the advantage of dense over something like EMOMs is more flexibility within that block. So meaning we can manipulate the time, which I'll show you on the next slide. We can manipulate the rep count. We can manipulate the characteristics of those reps, meaning we can adjust the tempo. Are they slow down or fast down? Are you using accommodating resistance with bands or chains? Are you doing pauses, etc., etc.? So there's a lot of flexibility with these dense blocks. Here's just another example. This is what I mean by time. So it doesn't always have to be a rep count, but it's still the same intention. You're still using a length of time and a weight that is very manageable, especially in that first week. Now, you may also see 2 numbers side by side separated by a dash. That is most common with unilateral movements. So a dumbbell row, it's just single arm, which means you'll do this rep count, or X, find your rep count, on the one side and then switch to the other side. And you're doing both sides every minute. Now, this goes without saying, but I feel obligated to emphasize this. You have to do the work. This is not going to be superior if you don't do the work. And again, the numbers don't lie. 50% compliance with your 60-minute sessions is still 120 minutes. But if you have low compliance with the shorter, dense workouts, we're slipping. That's getting too low. Now, it is important to emphasize that some people don't have time for, or maybe the interest for 5, 6, or 7 dense workouts in a week. And maybe they are doing 3 or 4. And that's totally fine. Because with those folks, beforehand, they were probably doing next to nothing. So, hey, if they were doing 0 or 10 or 20 minutes before, and now they're doing 60 or 90 or 120, that's amazing. That's incredible, right? Because ultimately, whatever method we're doing, whatever we're talking about, whether it's training, nutrition, it doesn't matter. All we want, no matter who you are, is improvement. Remember that. That is always most important. We've already talked about most of these. These are just a couple of my personal experiences thus far with the dense training. Now, I don't want to forget, I believe you should give credit where credit is due. This is not my method. Absolutely not. I've learned this from Keegan Smith. A common social media handle of his is Keegan Coach. You can find him on many platforms. He's a very influential, knowledgeable, impactful strength and conditioning coach around the world, really. And you can find him at New Athlete Project. He's also been involved with ATG and many others. So this is from him. As far as I know, he was the first to really develop or at least expand this method. Now, all that being said, again, just some personal experiences. Fewer mental hurdles. It just feels easier to start. So far, I look forward to every workout, which wasn't always the case. That's my timer to be concise. It feels easier to recover from session to session. I love the daily boost, personally. Prior to this, I didn't feel great on the rest days. Sometimes those were actually the hardest days for me. I just wanted to move. I just feel better when I move. And then I'm not going to go into this a lot right now, but there's something very interesting here regarding skill acquisition. And what I mean by that is using dense blocks to learn skills like fill in the blank. You can really make this your own. Right now, I'm working on a couple things that I had never even considered before. Previously, I probably would have thought they were silly and unnecessary. Juggling is one. I actually learned to juggle in a couple weeks with 5 minutes a day by just putting it into one of these dense blocks. And strict handstand push-ups is this one will take a lot longer, but same idea, using dense blocks to acquire skills. And like I said, you can make it your own, because I think that, and I've been guilty of this before, but we get too rigid with what exercise and training and working out is. What's the ultimate goal with it? Well, it's to be healthier, to get better. So should we only limit ourselves to lifting weights and doing things like that? Yeah, that's fine if you want. And I did that for a long time. But learning new skills is pretty darn important too. So that's everything. Many of you will already have this information, but if you are new, feel free to reach out here. At least as of now, Instagram would be the best platform. I'm revamping my website, so maybe by the time you see this, that will be back up and you'll see a link. That's it for now. Thank you everyone for tuning in.